Welcome to the Lifting Lounge podcast. Join your hosts Josh Parkin and Jack Buffery as they give you the knowledge and the tools to take your physical and mental performance to the next level.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning, mate.
I've had a little lie-in this morning.
That's okay.
It's been good. But guys, before me and Josh chat shit, let's just fill you in with what is in today's episode. First of all, we have the fit tip, and that is all about balance. Then we are going to go into Geek Corner, and we're going to talk about a bit of gaming and a couple of movies that I watched recently. Then in Fit Talk, we're going to talk about the dark side of the internet, because there is a very dark side of the fitness internet. Then in Study Time, we're going to have a look at the effects of unilateral versus bilateral training. And finally, moving on to the hot topic, we are going to look at the best way to break through a training plateau so you never have to worry about getting stuck in your workouts again. But before we go into all of that, how's your weekend been so far, Josh?
Yeah, not too shabby, mate. It's
Good.
not been too shabby at all. We what did I do yesterday? Worked yesterday and then trained and then went out for dinner. Really nice dinner at Verdant Seafood Bar in Falmouth. I had crab-loaded fries, which, mate, I tell you, I don't know what sauce they put in with that crab, but I could have ate that all night. They also had shrimp crackers, like prawn crackers, but I guess made of shrimp, and I was dipping them in the crab sauciness.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
Dude, I had scallops for the first time in my life.
What did you think of them?
Yeah, they were nice. Yeah,
they're nice. Yeah. They remind me of chicken. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
they remind
like
me
soft chicken.
Yeah, like really soft chicken.
What about yourself?
Really chilled out. I was working yesterday at Fitness World, so I didn't get back from there until about 3. Then obviously we recorded, and then I had a little bit more work to do after that. Then after that, to be fair, after that it was nearly 6 o'clock. We chilled out and got a takeaway. We were going to go out for dinner, but we decided to stay in, enjoy each other's company. I had a curry, I had a chicken tikka madras, and Kimberly had a Buku's burger. You're listening to this on a Thursday, but we're actually recording this on a Sunday. But yeah, so we decided to do that. And for those of you who have never been to Cornwall, specifically Falmouth or Helston, Buku's is an amazing burger place that does some amazing burgers, hot dogs, and shakes. And I was looking at their menu yesterday, Josh, and there's one thing I realised I haven't had there yet, and that is a rack of ribs. And I saw a picture of their rack of ribs, and it was really good. Yeah.
Oh,
so next time,
I love a good rack of ribs.
Me too.
Yeah, man. There's some good food places in Falmouth. Falmouth has some great food places. It is awesome. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had you woke up. Go on, sorry.
I say it's one of the benefits of living in a student town, to be honest. Like, there's food. There's always going to be some decent food places, which is really good. But yeah, go on. What were you going to say?
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, you've had a lovely lion, but I've had actually a really productive morning. Nice. I've managed to play at least an hour of video games, and I've put one meal in the slow cooker. I've prepped my calendar for the week, apart from the stuff that we're going to be doing. Yeah, I've been pretty productive. I've had a great morning so far, so it's great.
Well, obviously, the most important thing I need to ask you. Hold on. The most important thing I need to ask you is, what have you been gaming on this morning? What has your hour of gaming been towards?
I only have one game, mate, so I've only been playing Zelda.
Tears of the Kingdom.
I'm still playing Zelda.
Perfect.
Yeah. Only got one game in the moment, so still playing Zelda at the moment. I'm still trying to convince my wife to let me get a PS5 so I can buy more games. But I think she's a bit worried about never spending time with me.
Fair. Get a multiplayer game. It's problem solved.
Yeah, that is true. I've been seeing clips lately of couples playing like these multiplayer games. Like, one was like 2 penguins got to climb this thing and you're attached by a rope. And that looks quite fun, actually. So I might see if I can convince her to get that and play with me.
Tell her it's only on a PS5.
Yeah, definitely is only on a PS5. But in life, Jack, in life we need balance. We need balance in life. We have to. Sometimes we need periods of work. Sometimes we need periods of relaxation. And what I do find is that there is nothing better than having a balanced amount of tip, having a balanced intake of tips, and we don't want a top heavy tip. We don't want a bottom heavy tip. We want a very balanced tip, an equal amount of weight, perfectly balanced across the tip. So I'm wondering if, Jack, you had a balanced tip that you could give me, or does yours swing to the left?
Well, so I was wondering, Josh, which direction you would take this in, because where I'm going with this, I knew where you thought I was going to go with this, but it's not where you thought I was going to go.
Yeah.
So a more appropriate way to have said this would have been, can I balance on my tip? Because I'm actually talking. Have you seen the Pick of Destiny? A dick push-up.
Yes. Yeah, do it.
No,
do it.
I can't do that.
Do it.
I can do it. I just choose not to. So, no, my tip today, just the tip is learn balance. But for once, I'm not talking about in a mindset kind of way. I'm talking about in a real physical way. Learn how to balance. Like, one of the things that I want to be able to do for the rest of my life, or as long as I can anyway, is simply put a sock on while standing up. Like, have the ability to balance and put a sock on, and then balance on the other foot and put a sock on. But this goes to all sorts of things like jumping on one leg, skipping, just being able to stand on one leg. The tree pose from yoga is a really good one to practice as well. I think balance is something that is really, really overlooked, and it surprises me how many people lose their ability to balance. And as I've said many times before, my mind always automatically goes towards longevity as well as like the strength and the fun stuff. It goes to longevity quite a lot. And I'm going to be honest, if you can't balance, you're fucked. Because if you take a fall, then you're more likely to take a fall in the first place and you won't be able to recover yourself. So I would say learn how to balance, and study time is actually going to go into that a little bit later on, but yeah, just have a bit of practice. And the first goal that I will give everybody is learn how to put your socks on while standing up and without supporting yourself on the wall. So yeah.
So Jack, do you have any socks with you at the moment?
I mean, I'm wearing some.
Yeah, can you put your socks on while standing up?
I can, but I'm currently sitting down, so it's not going to happen.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. It's also what people don't realize about balancing. It's not so much about just the ability to stand on one leg, but it's the ability to catch yourself when you fall. A lot of people, when they get really good at balancing, they get really good at falling or saving themselves when they're about to fall. Unless you're going to physically learn how to fall, like for instance in jiu-jitsu we get taught how to fall, because it's not something you think you'd need to know, but it is something you need to know in that kind of sport. So unless you're going to go out and do that, learning how to balance will teach you how to catch yourself if you stumble. And that's where a lot of problems as you get older arise, is where you lose your balance and then are unable to catch yourself correctly, and then break a hip, etc. So, and as we know from previous episodes, over the age of 65, if you break your hip, you have a 40% more chance of dying within that year. So balance is almost life-saving in that aspect, and it could reduce your chance of death by 40% because you won't fall over and break your hip.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit. I know that's shooting quite far, but you know what I mean. Learning balance isn't just about standing on one leg and balancing on weird shit. It's about the ability to catch yourself. It's about understanding your surroundings and your reaction and all of that stuff.
And the thing is that I think we're seeing now, and we notice it all the time currently in today's society, is that these problems that we see, and balance is one of them, strength is definitely another one, especially grip strength among men. These problems are getting younger and younger. They're like, there's now people in their 30s, whereas go back about 3 decades, it probably would have been people exclusively late 50s and older. But now we're seeing people in their 30s with all these types of myriad of problems that was before exclusively for an older generation. So you just working on overcoming these things before they happen is obviously the best way to do it. But if they are already happening, then start to learn how to get better at this shit.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great tip. It's a very balanced tip.
Very balanced tip. I like it. Right, let's head on to Geek Corner. And Josh, I want to ask you, in terms of gaming, I don't know if this will be different for you because you get rid of your consoles once you've kind of had a bit of use of them. So I don't know whether this would apply to you as much. But what games have you retroactively discovered? So, for instance, one of the games or the series of games I discovered a long time after they came out. I played them when they came out, at least one of them, but I never really got into it. But then during lockdown, I really got into the Splinter Cell, the whole run of Splinter Cell games, which went from, I mean, I think I'm nearly 20 years late to the party from the first one. So, is there any games that you have retroactively discovered that you ended up really, really liking?
Yeah, I guess for me actually was the Zelda franchise in general and the Mario franchise. I didn't I with those two, it's not something I played when I was younger, really. Um I was more on PlayStation games. I never really was a Nintendo kid until later on. The only Nintendo game I was playing was Pokemon. So Mario and Zelda is something I discovered definitely later on, and then played back some of those games. Definitely Mario, and with some of the earlier Zelda games. I haven't played like the early Zelda games, and I haven't played Majora's Mask yet. So I need to
Such
play
a good game.
But
That is such a good
that
game.
was definitely, yeah. And I've heard great things, but it's something I haven't touched yet. But those two genres, well, not genres, those two games were the ones that I'd kind of discovered later on. And I would say, other than that, there's not been much because I've always bought a console. So, because I'm a terrible gamer, so I always end up selling a console because I'm poor. So I end up because I need the cash, and then I'll buy a console specifically because a new game has come out that I want to play, and then I'll sell the fucking console again after that game's done, and then I'll buy a console again when a new game comes out. So, which is awful, really. The game is screaming at me, But yeah, so. That and the other one, I guess I kind of discovered Gears of War late and Halo late. I discovered those late.
My brother-in-law has tried getting me to play those. I don't think I've ever tried playing a Halo game, but I put maybe 45 minutes into the Gears of War remaster last year, and it just wasn't for me. I couldn't get on with it, to be honest.
The other one as well, because I've always kind of been late to games because I've never got games on release because I've just never had the money at the time. I've always kind of been late to them. The other one that I've really enjoyed that I was late to was Destiny. Destiny is a great game.
Is it? Is that online massive multiplayer, or is it actually got a?
It is. Yeah, it is an online massive multiplayer, but it also kind of can be linear at the same time,
Right,
which is
okay.
what's great about it. It's a mixture of the two. So you have the option, if you want to, you can play it forever, and there is like big things you can do with other people, but also at the same time, you can just single player through the story and just enjoy that. So it is a mixture of both, which is what I really liked about it. But also it's got like that Halo-esque sci-fi shooter to it, which is really fun, but also got a little bit of RPG in it. It's just really good. It's a really, really good game. And it's still going, I think, which is brilliant. So yeah, I really enjoyed Destiny. Well, I think it's Destiny too, but I really enjoyed that.
Okay. And are there any games that you, on hindsight, you would want to play that you haven't perhaps played yet? So for me, I still haven't played, and like again, considering I'm a massive Zelda fan, I still have not completed Twilight Princess. In fact, nowhere near completed it, and I still haven't even played the Wind Waker. And I bought both of them for the Wii U because they're still not out on Switch. So yeah, I bought them last year. But I'm still a little bit Zeldaed out after putting probably close to 200 hours into Tears of the Kingdom. So I'm just taking a break from Zelda for a little while. But yeah, have you got any games like that you kind of want to do but you haven't yet?
Yeah, tons. So definitely, I never played any of the God of War games, and especially now with these remakes, well, not remakes, these newer versions, that they look phenomenal. I'd love to play through them. There's a game called Shadow of Colossus, which apparently is really good. I haven't played that before.
That's old. So Shadow of Colossus initially came out on the PlayStation 1 or maybe 2, I want to say. So when I was a kid, this is a complete tangent. When I was a kid, I smoked a little bit of the what's the funny name? Not the devil's grass. What is it when it's like solid?
Devil's lettuce.
No, it was solid though. It was like brown.
Yeah.
So I don't know there's a funny name for it. Anyway, when I was a teenager, I smoked a bit of that, and the guy I bought it off, he actually gave me the very first bit I bought in a case for Shadow of Colossus, and that was for the PS1 or 2. I can't remember. Because he knew my mum and didn't want to get in trouble, so he gave it to me in a games case.
Nice.
But yeah, that was funny days. But yeah, that was an epic game for its time as well.
Yeah, I have never played the Uncharted games. I've never played The Last of Us. I've never played the Red Dead games. So these, I'm missing out on quite a lot. I've missed out on quite a lot of games. I've never played the Fallout games or the BioShock games, and I love Bethesda. So
wow,
so
I must admit, BioShock's on Switch now, isn't it? I'm sure it is.
I think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I haven't looked.
I bought myself a PlayStation 4 last year for my birthday, purely because I wanted to play The Last of Us, Days Gone, and Spider-Man. Like, I saw someone sell them off like 120 quid, so I was like, "I'll sod that, I'm going to have that." And it had Spider-Man and Days Gone with it, so I just had to buy The Last of Us Remastered. So I was like, "Oh yeah, sod that." And I must admit, it gave me new love for PlayStation, because they really do know how to do a single player narrative game better than what Xbox do, I think. So yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, there's loads of games.
What about yourself? What have you kind of
retroactively? Yeah. So definitely the Splinter Cell games. Yeah. They're one that I have done, and one that I'm going to be doing come October is going to be Metal Gear Solid 3, because I've tried multiple times to play that, I can never quite get into it. And in October, they're coming up with like a collection of 1, 2, and 3. And I've mentioned it multiple times on this podcast. I love the Metal Gear Solid games. I think they're freaking fantastic. If you played Metal Gear Solid 2 now, you would think Hideo Kojima, who is like the director and the game producer of it, you would think he's like some prosthetic person or something, because he got so much of today's society 20 years ago. It's insane. It's like he's predicted social media and the rise of all of that stuff for it. It is absolutely insane. But yeah, so Metal Gear Solid 3 will be coming out on that as well. I recently played Metal Gear Solid 5, but the reason I stopped is because I am a little bit OCD when it comes to gaming, and I haven't played 4 at all yet, so I want to play through literally all the Metal Gear Solid games before I play 5.
Nice.
But yeah, the big series for me was Splinter Cell, and I freaking loved it. And for some of them, like the first one is 20 years old, and it's got mechanics in it that even games nowadays don't have. For instance, there's a fish tank. Bear in mind, this was on the PS2, I think, and it was 2002. And you're creeping through this office building, and if you shoot a fish tank, the glass won't shatter, but the water will drain down to the level where your bullet hole is. And just simple things like that mechanic, and the lights and the shadow mechanics of it actually makes it such an insane experience. So much so that Kimberly probably kind of has the Xbox set up for her gaming at the moment, and I have the PS4, and I'm gutted because I want to replay through them again, and they're not on a PS4; they're only on Xbox and PC. But yeah, they are the
man,
ones.
do it.
They are the ones.
Yeah, I mean, man, this is just making me want to play games all the time now.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Tell me about it. As for your God of War games, I've played a fair bit of the first one, and it is insane. Like, it is really, really good. So I definitely recommend, getting that. Have you heard, sticking on gaming for a second, and I just want to speak on movies for a second, have you heard the Switch 2 rumours?
Do you know what? I haven't found them myself, but my 11-year-old client who's really into gaming keeps bringing it up. So, yeah, I've heard there is potentially one that it may launch next year.
Yeah, so there's Gamescom at the end of this month. I can't remember where it is, and there's a load of theories that it's going to get announced there, and that it will probably launch with a new Mario game next year.
Yes.
So another interesting thing to see. So Zelda has a very long history of spanning two generations from the Wii onwards, I believe. So on the Wii, you had Twilight Princess, which then went onto the Wii U as well. Oh no, so sorry, from the GameCube onto the Wii, and then the Wii had Skyward Sword that went from that onto the Wii U, and the Wii U had Breath of the Wild, which went from the Wii U onto the Switch. So I'd be surprised if we don't see Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch too. Hopefully it'll be backwards compatible. But the thing that makes me chuckle about the Switch is that it is still outselling, maybe not so much anymore, but the sales figures for it and its games are fucking insane, but it doesn't have to rely on the power.
Yeah.
It's not even as powerful as a PS4 or an Xbox
No.
One. So like all the other consoles are 2 generations ahead of it, yet it is still keeping up in terms of sales. So I'm looking forward to seeing what will happen if they make it as powerful as even a PS4, to be honest.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. And I just hope that with the Switch 2, that more games go across to it. Because this is my only problem with the Switch is that if you're into Nintendo like I am, so I only have a Switch, you miss out on so many other games. So it means you have to have multiple consoles. Whereas if you have PlayStation or Xbox, yes, there is some games that are only Xbox or only PlayStation, but you generally get the majority of good games on there, and that's okay. Whereas Switch kind of misses out a lot more on stuff. Yeah, a lot of you're gonna get all the computer people here say that actually just get a fucking computer and you'd be able to get everything, but yeah, I would like to see it a little bit better. I mean, I've still got one of the older ones, I think, and it still works beautifully fine. My problem as well with the Switch is for instance, my docking station's broke,
Oh, no
and
way.
it was so easy to break. So I can't plug it into the TV now. I've only got it handheld, which is fine, but then that's
Oh,
not so
no.
good for multiplayer like at home. So will they have a system that's a bit less fragile? And so it's easier to go into the TV, or are they going to try and just go like full handheld?
I tell you what I would like to see. This is what I was hoping, because I got my Switch on launch day, and I freaking love it. Like, it is so good. It was a last minute purchase as well. I was like, oh shit, yeah, I want it. This guy saw the trailer for Breath of the Wild. What I would like to see, because I think this is what the original intention was, the same as the Wii, I would like to see it be in dock mode or handheld mode, but I'd also like to see, like the Wii U, where you can have it on the TV, but have a second screen in your hand on the actual Switch as well, or just have it like Switch only. But for instance, on the Wii U, if you're playing Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, you've got your items list or your map on the screen in your hands whilst the game is on the TV, and I think that's freaking.
Yeah.
I love that idea, and that's why in Breath of the Wild you've got the Sheikah Slate. So the Sheikah Slate was initially meant to be the Wii U gamepad, and that's why it's shaped like it.
Oh, I
So
see.
yeah, so I'd love to see that kind of combination come back. I think that would work really well. But in terms of just handheld or docked, there's been rumors of a Switch Pro, which would be a docked only version for ages. I don't think that's going to happen. It's just going to be the Switch 2. I think I would rather I think they'll keep handheld. There's no way they won't keep handheld now just because of how successful it's made it. But I would like to see more power. I'd definitely like to see more power, even if it's more power only in docked mode, where you have to have where it like plugging it in creates more power somehow. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, I think that'd be really good.
Well, I guess having it handheld as well as doctors, just what that did for them was just eradicate an entire system. So that just made them get rid of the DS altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it makes sense to combine the two and have it that way rather than having to have both. But yeah, I mean, we'll see, I guess.
We'll see. Hopefully, we might even find out by the end of this month. Just a couple of quick ones to finish off with. So I finally got around to watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and You've seen Super Mario Bros., haven't you?
No, I haven't.
Oh, haven't you not? All right, okay, fair enough. I won't talk about that then. We'll wait until that. But I finally watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3 last night. Motherfucker, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that shit is emotional. Jesus Christ. So
isn't it just?
Yeah. So stuff that I was worried that was going to happen didn't happen, thank God. But the stuff that I wasn't expecting, I was sitting on the sofa, I was like, Kimberly, don't look at me. I'm like, yeah, I'm welling up here. This shit. It was out of all the Marvel films that have happened since Endgame, this is by far my favorite one. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was
better
great.
Than Spider-Man.
Oh, that's a good show, actually. I always forget about Spider-Man. Oh, I would have to watch it again. Probably not. I haven't watched Spider-Man since I saw it at the cinema. So, yeah, probably not, actually. But, yeah, it is still really good, though. So, I don't know about that. I'd have to watch Spider-Man again. But I really fucking liked it. I thought it was great. It had the post-credit scene was very interesting for me because I wasn't expecting it to say what it said. So that was interesting. I can't remember what the mid-credit scene was now, but yeah, really good film. Had a lot of heart. It was centered, it was centered around Rocket Raccoon. That's not a spoiler at all, and it was just man, I liked it.
Yeah, I thought the villain was really good. I thought the villain was brilliant. And I actually like how it ended with the villain. So it ended slightly differently. I mean, are we allowed to talk about spoilers? It's been out for ages.
Maybe not like full-on direct spoilers because it has been out for ages, but it's taken me this time to watch it. So
yeah. So in terms of the way it ended with the villain, it ended differently to I think how every other villain works, and I really enjoyed it. And it just how the whole movie was brilliant, and they didn't do all the things you were kind of expecting them to do. It kind of all went in a bit of a different direction, and I thought it was awesome. It was such a good movie. The action sequences were great. The music was great. Rocket's story is brilliant. Rocket's story is absolutely brilliant. Groot's back on track and looking wicked
at the end. Man, Groot, that was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
The character who surprised me the most, and he's in all the trailers, and again, isn't the spoiler, was Adam Warlock. I was not expecting him to be like that at all in the slightest. It was good. I enjoyed it quite a lot. That was probably, it brought like quite a few laughs. But I'm also going to give it, I'm probably going to give it props. Oh, and the use of a word that I was not expecting to hear in the MCU as well. There was an F-bomb in it. I was not expecting that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was not expecting it.
Isn't it the first one, apparently?
Yeah, there's the only other Marvel type film I've seen it used in was with Wolverine in I think it was Days of Future. No, it wasn't Days of Future Past. It was one of the X-Men films, but that was before Marvel took over it, and that's the only other film I've seen the F word used in. But yeah, that was quite funny, I think it also wins the award for me for the most uncomfortably gross set piece in it as well. There's like a living tissue. It's not even a planet, like a living tissue lab kind of thing there that's just hanging around in space.
Yeah.
It's fucking gross. It's just disgusting. It's like this alive tissue. But yeah, it is a truly great film. I really enjoyed it. One of my favorite ones of this phase, maybe apart from Spider-Man. Also watched Super Mario Brothers. It's worth watching. So yeah, let me know when you've watched that, Josh, and we'll have a chat with that. But the other one,
What's that on?
I rented it on Amazon Prime yesterday. It was like $5 to rent.
Yeah.
Have you seen? I forgot to ask. This would have been more relevant in the last episode, so I should have brought it up. But have you seen who's been cast to play Johnny Cage in the next Mortal Kombat film?
Yeah, it's Thingy from
Carl
The Boys.
Urban. Yeah,
Carl Urban, is it?
Yeah, that's it. I think he's going to be a great fit. I don't know if he's a martial artist though, but yeah, I think he is a great fit for that kind of character. So I'm looking forward to that massively.
I mean, he did play Judge Dredd.
He did. So we know he's good at like fisticuffs and gunplay, but and swordplay as well from like Lord of the Rings and stuff. But I've never seen, because Johnny Cage is a legit martial artist in the lore of Mortal Kombat. So we'll have to see what he does. But just his demeanor, I think he'll be a really good fit for that. So that'll be good fun.
Yeah, that'd be really good fun. I mean, I'd be interested in how that goes.
Okay, let's move on now to a little bit of fit talk. And so this actually started off something else, but I think we've covered the topic before, so I changed it. But I will say what it was going to be as well. It was going to be, what do you think the worst internet fad is? Fitness internet fad, but I think we've actually done that before. So the reason I wanted to speak about that is to also talk about the dark side of internet fitness, because there is a dark side, and in that dark side, it is sales. It's basically, as PTs, we have somewhat of a great power, but not all of us have great responsibility. Because health and fitness and getting in shape, fat loss, weight loss, all of that stuff is such an emotionally driven market, it's very, very easy for fitness professionals, especially ones who are in fucking phenomenal shape, to sell you something that looks like it's going to change and revolutionize your world without it. So one of the standard ones that I always think of, and I was a sucker for this back before I knew any better, was I used to do P90X. And I got really lean doing it. I like leaned out, but you've got all these guys who look jacked doing all this weightlifting stuff, but they didn't get those muscles or those results in the 90 days. They're doing like proper workouts in gyms to get those results. But back in the day, I fell for it. And this was before even social media. So I used to do P90X, but now it's so rife, and you'll get these people. I think probably the one that everyone will recognize is that bodybuilders selling supplements, like, take these supplements, you'll look like me. Just completely forgetting the fact that they're on a shitload of Tren and HGH and stuff like that. So I just wanted to have a chat with you, Josh, and talk about like the dark side of the internet fitness, what people should kind of avoid, and when they're looking out for it, what things to look out for. So what do you think is the most disgusting, blatant use of power that fitness professionals put where it's actually no help at all?
Well, it's interesting because that reminded me of. Do you remember Six Pack Shortcuts?
Yeah, no, that wasn't Eugene Tao. Eugene Tao's the good guy.
No, it's called Mike Chang.
Mike Chang, yeah. Sorry, that's making him completely racist because he was an Asian guy, but yeah, he was. I do remember that.
Yeah. So that just reminded me of that guy, is because he was all about get six pack like me if you just squat holding a towel, and like it's good. He's getting people exercising, get people moving, but also it was a lot of bullshit, you know?
Yeah,
because he was like fucking huge, and then so. Yeah. So there is a lot of this out there. There is a lot of people selling programs, they're looking a certain way, but selling programs that are the complete opposite of what it is they do, and then trying to get people to look like them. I think that actually a lot of the time, those people, it's not so much that they're being nefarious in any kind of way, but they maybe just don't have the knowledge of programming. There's a lot of PTs, and this is a very common thing for PTs, who enjoyed training in the gym, really liked training, and got into that, and just started going to the gym, really enjoyed it, and maybe got really friendly with the trainers, and they decided, you know what, I really like this, I'm going to become a trainer as well, because they liked training, but didn't actually have the knowledge there on how to program and how to train, or didn't put the time and effort into that knowledge. So they did the training, the courses, let's face it, PT courses are not the best. That you have to put a lot of the time and effort in yourself to learn. So, and then they don't put the time and effort into learning. How many like absolutely jacked guys do you see putting people through HIIT workouts as soon as they come into the gym? It's like, that's fine, but they don't really have an idea of biomechanics or anatomy or programming in general. They just like training, and that's, I think, what happens quite a lot of the time. Some people maybe get really far because their marketing is phenomenal. And that's really, in terms of sales, that's all it is, isn't it? How good is your marketing? How much can you get people going, oh yeah, shit, I want to buy that product? And then they're selling a product, but the product can be absolutely dog shit. So
yeah, and especially with attractive people as well. If you've got a decent body, male or female, I think women can sometimes get away with it a little bit more as well, because they just have to be skinny and have a big butt, and that will get them followers as well. I know that sounds completely freaking wrong to say, and I'm PC to say, but it can be true. If you see a skinny woman with a big butt, you're going to assume that she's in really good shape, but sometimes it could be skinny fat. But the same thing with guys as well. If they've been working out, doesn't mean that they know their shit. A lot of these people, like you say, Josh, they only know how to train one person, and that one person is themselves. They've got no idea about the nuances of different people. But it's so much easier to sell because they look good. They look good with no clothes on, and then you'll see them doing these funky exercises that get attention on social media, but they are not the exercises that have got these people in that shape. Let's face it. So I think with this, like, you've just got to vet your sources. Just make sure that the people know what they're talking about. Like, make sure, like you say, that they know how to program. Look for people who educate themselves and have a background. One of the things that I would say, I'm a member of quite a lot of forums with PTs all across the world, and one of the things that I see commenting so badly, and it does wind me up a bit. It's like, oh, I've literally just passed my level 3. I want to get straight into online training. How do I do it? Every time I see that, I comment, go and get 2 years experience training people in person first. Because you need it. You can't just jump straight into it. There's so many nuances, and I'm still learning every day. Like, we do however many hours a week, 1-to-1, and I still learn. Like, I still learn when I get a person with a new malady or problem in. I'm still learning all the time. And I've been doing this for years. And you get people who are just qualifying and want to get straight into it, who, if one of their clients comes to them with a problem, they're not going to have seen it in the real world. So they're not going to have a fucking clue. So like you said, they would just chuck more HIIT workouts at it. So exercising caution when you're doing this. And it's the same with nutrition as well, guys. And tools like the shake weight. It's understanding that some people work out that they can make a lot of money by doing things that are less than genuine.
Yeah. Also, I think there's a few things as well. There's one is, when you're building a business, a lot of the time you get taught to try and be niche. Yeah. So being in niche cells, and so some people go too far into one niche. Like I saw a guy the other day who his whole thing was around kettlebell juggling and landmine workouts.
Wow.
Right, which is fine. Like not you do you, whatever. But that's very, very niche. Like landmine workouts are great, but they're hard and that's very niche. And then kettlebell juggling is like super niche.
Yeah, that's mad.
But
that's more for the flash, surely.
yeah, exactly. But there's also another side of it is where like we say, like sex sells, doesn't it? So the cool oh shit, sorry, I just dropped something. The cool looking shit, the stuff that looks all flash, all these weird movements or doing all this crazy looking stuff sells better than just mastering squats, or like mastering bodyweight squats and then goblet squats and then barbell squats, like going the slow process for 12 weeks to just get better in one position or whatever, like slowly building up a foundation isn't sexy, is it? So a lot of people are trying to sell these crazy things. And what I would say is, if you're a complete beginner, you want to avoid the flashy stuff to start with. You avoid all of that shit. Whereas if you are more advanced and you've been training for years, and then you see this flashy stuff and you're like, you know what, I think I want to give this stuff a go because I've been doing lots of different training for years now and I feel strong, then yeah, fuck it, go give it a go. Maybe that'll be fun and maybe you'll enjoy it. That's the time to try the flashy stuff. However, if you're just starting out, unfortunately, you've got to do this boring basic shit to get to the level you need to get to be strong enough to do the flashy stuff.
Yeah, we talk about the fundamentals. We've talked about this many times before, and that's learning the big lifts. And back to the fit tip earlier on, is learning balance, learning coordination, learning stability. It always reminds me of the Bruce Lee quote: "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Like, get good at the basics, nail in the basics first, and then you've earned the right to have fun and to play. But first of all, get good at doing the basics first. I think that's the main thing to do. And what it always comes back to, we've said this before, well, focus on getting strong first. Strong, stable, and then that's it. Yeah, it can be boring, but you're going to get absolutely exponentially better results in the long term.
Yep, definitely. Most definitely.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to study time next. And it's actually going to be a quick one. And it does go back to the fit tip as well, which is learn balance too. But this was published in April 2013. I forget where it was published now, but it's Effects of Unilateral Training and Bilateral Training on Physical Performance, a meta-analysis. And just for those who don't know, a meta-analysis is basically a compilation of a load of different research papers, and you're analyzing them all together to see what similarities and disparities they have and what conclusions they draw when all the information is put together. So first of all, I'm just going to say, in unilateral, this is all taken from the study, in unilateral exercises, in unilateral exercises are more effective than bilateral exercises in improving athletic. Hold on, why is that not making sense in my head now? In unilateral exercises are more effective than what are you doing? There he is on. Are more effective than bilateral exercise and improving athletic performance is debatable. Okay, so basically, yeah, you're saying here, if they're more effective is debatable. So the objectives of this study was this meta-analysis investigated the effects of unilateral and bilateral exercises on different effect indicators of jump ability, sprint ability, maximal force, change of direction ability, and balance ability. Unilateral training has a more significant. So this is the what I'm reading out now is actually the conclusion, and then we can just have a quick chat about this. This is only going to be a quick one. Unilateral training has a more significant effect on jumping ability and maximal strength for unilateral power generation patterns, and bilateral training has a more significant effect on jumping ability and maximal strength for bilateral power generation patterns. which makes sense. So basically, if you practice jumping with both legs, you get more powerful on both legs. If you practice jumping with one leg, you're going to get more powerful with one leg. Unilateral training is more specific to the specificity of the sport, especially for sports with unilateral limb dominant forces. For change of direction and balance, unilateral and bilateral training do not highlight that the training method is better, and the specific training plan should be developed according to the training objectives. That was kind of interesting for me, that one. But what I will say is that I think most of these studies were carried out on athletes who are already going to have kind of a fundamental balance and ability to change direction anyway. So the fact that unilateral versus bilateral doesn't really change that much for changing direction and the balance, that I was expecting that to be like a significant change, but it actually wasn't. So I did think that was interesting. But one more interesting point I'm going to bring up on this, and then we can just have a chat about the difference between unilateral and bilateral training anyway. So unilateral training can stimulate the human nervous system and more muscle fibers involved in contraction, especially the excitation, intensity, and number of fast muscle fiber increase. This stimulation is conducive to increase the contraction force of the muscle. So basically what that is saying is that unilateral, so single limb training, has got a better connection to the nervous system and can impact muscle contractions better. So there is no summary review for this paper. It's all really scientific. So I just thought we'd have a quick chat about unilateral and bilateral training in regards to this. I'm a strong believer. One of the things that that made me think about this and use this for a study is what is, without a doubt, whenever we see this planned on someone's program, we say, that's fucking gross, or that's disgusting, or oh my God, I'm glad I'm not doing that. And that's single limb training. That's like split squats, lunges, stuff like that. That is unanimously disgusting because it messes up your legs. But if you can get good at it, you can get really strong in some of it. We had a client who was reverse drop lunging 110 kilos a couple of months ago, and that's just solid. So what are your thoughts, Josh?
I mean, yeah, I would say that essentially what this is saying is it's the rule of specificity, isn't it? Specificity is key in terms of what you need. So if you require a lot more unilateral movements in your sport, then you need to train that. But also if you have directional movements in a specific way and you do a lot of a specific kind of movement, then you need to train that and get better at that, and train what you need to improve that specific movement, which just makes complete sense. You know, this is where you get like those sports conditioning coaches who will, as soon as you get somebody in who's like a rugby player, for instance, they'll get them doing all these crazy agility drills and this, that, and the other, when actually they may not need to do that. They just need to do what is specific to their sport. And I think that's what a lot of people get wrong sometimes, is they don't look at, right, how are you moving? What are the exercises you're doing the most? What is the positions you're in the most? Okay, we need to improve those positions, get you stronger and faster in those positions. Rather than instead of just going, oh, you do a sport, let's just get you doing these crazy drills I saw on YouTube. You know, it's making sure there's specificity to the thing. For instance, in combat sports, like in jiu-jitsu, for instance, there is a mixture of both unilateral and bilateral, but a lot of it would be explosive movements off the ground so you can ping up and move around when you need to, and a lot of glutes because you're doing a lot of hip thrusts and movements like that. So it's making sure you're specific to the cause.
Yeah, all great points there as well. What I'm going to say, what I'm going to end this study time with is, in terms of functionality for the average population, I think it's really important you do both. Like, make sure, because unilateral training is going to help you balance out any problems as well. Like if you've got any problems in your knees, your hips, your ankles, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, it's going to really help balance that out. And because if you're focusing on those things anyway, if you've got any core imbalances as well, that will actually have a decent effect on that too. It will highlight weaknesses you have there. So in everyday life, we have to sometimes change direction quick, or we have to jump onto a step quick or something like that. So that unilateral training, just in regards to balance itself, is going to be a really good thing. But also, so is the stability, strength, and power that you can generate through bilateral training at the same time. So what I would say is train both. Like, I know a lot of people hate the single leg stuff. If you hate it, it probably means you should probably do it a little bit more. At least whack it into your phase a couple of times a year, if not more. And you will see improvements across the board with this as well. So let's move on to the hot topic. And this could actually tie in as well, to be fair, with balance and with the study time. And today's hot topic is going over the best ways to break through a training plateau. So, first of all, what is a plateau when it comes to training? A training plateau is, let's say you have maxed out your squat and you just feel like you can't go any further. So, let's say you're doing a really simple program like a 5x5, and you get to a point where you can't get past a certain number. Now, when I first started training, my first plateau came on the overhead press, and it was through a 5x5, and my first plateau was on 32.5 kilos, which is kind of embarrassing to admit, but that's where it was. And I didn't know how to get past it then, but the method I did take to get past it worked, and it was actually really simple. So I'm going to go through, first of all, I'm going to go through how to get ahead of them before they happen, and then I'm going to say what you can do when you actually hit a plateau. But my results is to basically have you never plateau, because if you're not competing at a high level on anything, it is possible just to keep on going without plateauing, unless you get really ridiculously strong. But then plateauing means something different, and we just start looking at different stimulus. But we're going into like general public kind of plateaus here, where you just want to scream past it. So my drivers for this are basically, plateaus can disrupt a program when you aren't ready to deal with them. They can put you off and mess with your confidence and motivation, and I want to make sure that's never a problem again for you guys. The actions I'm going to take, I'm just going to lay out some clear strategies to overcome and bust through plateaus. And Josh, as always, just kick in if you've got nothing to add, and yeah, we can discuss as much as you want. So first of all, I would say the best way to do it is to try and get ahead of them before they happen. And the number one way to do this is have intelligently phased programming. Because if you've got phased programming, then if the phases are written right, they should get rid of the plateaus before they even happen. So some of the things that we can go through, and Josh, I'll just list these off, and then we can talk about them individually. So we've got exercise variation, rep variation, set variation, load variation, rest variation, and frequency variation. So first of all, exercise variation. You can do the same dominant muscle group but have different movements. So the most standard way of phasing something would be 4 weeks at a time. So let's say you do 4 weeks of bench press, flat barbell bench press. The next 4 weeks you could do incline dumbbell bench press. So Josh, do you want to add anything to the exercise variation?
Yeah. So in terms of that's exactly it, isn't it? In terms of exercise variation, you can switch it up to mess around, but you can. Standard is about 4 weeks, but you can spend longer on that. So you can spend a longer amount of time with one particular exercise. You can go up to 6 weeks, maybe even 12. It doesn't matter. But it's as soon as you start feeling a plateau, you can then, it's almost being slightly intuitive with your body. As soon as you start feeling with a plateau, you can switch. And it doesn't even have to be too much of an extreme switch. It could even be like the same exercise, but adding a tempo, a pause, or something along those lines. Or the point of the exercise where you find the hardest, you just work on that. So if it's a bench, for instance, and you struggle getting off your chest, then it's changing it to like a pin press, where it's still basically a straight bench press, but it's just coming from the bottom.
Yeah. I'm such a child. So with exercise variation, it's exactly that. You can change up as much as you want, and it's a really good point you brought up about it can be 12 weeks. So the longer, I say 4 weeks, but I do actually have another quite strong view on this as well. The longer you can get away with not changing your exercises, the better results you're actually going to get in the long term. I say 4 weeks because for general population, that's just a good number to keep things varied, to keep people interested in the program. However, if you don't have problems of commitment, if you're happy committing to doing the same kind of workout for a prolonged amount of time, then eke it out for all it's worth, because that means when you introduce a new stimulus, you are actually going to get better results. So try not to change up the stimuluses too often if you can get away with it. The next one I'm going to go on to is rep variation. And that's as simple as it sounds. Like, you vary up the reps instead of doing what everyone tends to do, which is like the 8 to 12 kind of variation. Just focus on a bit of strength instead. Just bring the reps down and go for like a 5 to 8 or a 3 to 5 rep range instead, and just focus on that strength bit a bit.
Yeah, definitely. What people forget when it comes to hypertrophy is also building muscle, is that everybody kind of goes to like 15 reps and then leaves it at that because they think that that's as high as you should go. But actually, muscle building occurs anywhere between 5 and 30 reps. So you actually have shitloads of reps to play with. So yeah, you may go through a strength phase, you may go through like a low volume phase, but sometimes it's really important to go through a high volume phase as well, and go up to those near enough 30 reps, because then you can really, that's going to mess you up, but it's also, you can still build muscle in those areas. So definitely widen your vision of what rep ranges can be, instead of just thinking, oh, 15, maybe 20, oh my god, I can never do more than 20, and I'll do 20 maybe once a fucking year, you know.
And look, all these rep ranges, they're not compartmentalized either. Just because you're working on an 8 to 12 doesn't mean that working on a 5 to on a 5 rep isn't going to give you gains as well. These all tie into each other, and the same with the 30 reps. You're going to get a lot of muscle endurance, but you're still going to get a lot of fucking growth there as well. And they all play into each other. Basically, if you're getting stronger, then working in the hypertrophy phase and working in the muscle endurance phase, all of these things are going to give you a little bit of everything. Just some of them are more dominant than the others. And also it depends what your body's used to. Again, when it comes to novel stimulus, the things that you aren't used to are going to have the biggest effect on you. You do have to give it time, though, and that goes back to that first point. Next is set variation as well. So it's very similar, apart from we change the number of sets. So we've mentioned 5x5. On one of the other ends of the spectrum of that is German volume training, which is 10 sets of 10. Obviously, you'd have to have a completely different weight for that, but set variation is similar to rep variation in terms of the amount of volume that you're going to get in.
Yeah, definitely. Sets are super important. A lot of people, I tend to actually, in my programming, use my sets as the progressive overload rather than anything else. So I might have like a rep range of like 10 to 20. I've got to hit 10 to 20, and I've got like 3 sets. Then the next week might be 4 sets, and then the week after that might be 5 sets. So I'm increasing the sets that way to really like increase the volume. And I found some of the best programs I've had that in, and they're where I've really made the most gains in terms of, I usually works more in hypertrophy. Obviously works in strength as well with the low reps. It's good to have a lot of high sets so you can kind of get the volume in there as well. But yeah, I definitely like to use my sets as a progressive overload kind of option.
Yeah, well, it's a really intelligent way of programming because you get to have, as opposed to more reps where you're getting more tired towards the end of the set. Every time you start a new set, you're kind of attacking it from fresh. So it's almost like getting more quality reps in with the load. So that does make sense completely. Next is the load variation as well, and that is, there's a couple of ways to do this. That could either be adjusted via the reps and the sets, or it can be adjusted just by the amount of load that you're adding onto the bar or onto the dumbbells, into the kettlebells and stuff like that. So if you an intelligent program will have different load that you will be lifting throughout your sessions, just to, again, give you different intensities when you are lifting the weights.
Yeah, definitely. Don't be afraid to go lighter as well. Like, don't be afraid to. I think that's the problem. Is some people push the weight too far, too high, too quick. And like, take your time with the progressions. Don't always load shitloads on the bar, but also don't be afraid to drop the weight down and go for more like muscle connection and concentration, or go for higher volume. That massively works. So Sam, who I plan for now, I have to plan his weights, and I have to tell him to drop the weights on some exercises because I know exactly what he's like. He'll just keep going fucking heavy, heavy, heavy. So on some I'll put go light, go controlled, focus on range, this, that, and the other, and he still makes progress on that. He still makes progress, and he's still. I mean, he's just getting huge now, so which is scary. But yeah,
yeah, he's a big guy. Next is one that is just as important, and I always see it overlooked, and that is rest variation. If you're used to having 60 seconds rest all the time, try see what happens when you have 2 minutes rest, or try see what happens when you have 45 seconds rest. The changes that happen here are massive, and if you can, for instance, 45 seconds rest is only 15 seconds less than a minute, but Jesus Christ, that makes a difference when you are trying to push some weights. And again, you can have 30 seconds rest as well. This obviously ties in with the reps and the sets and what kind of stimulus you're going for, but it can be fun to mess with this sometimes to see how much of a difference it makes. If you're going right at the top end of strength, you can sometimes be resting up to 5 minutes. Like if you're going for 1 rep maxes and things like that. I'm usually stuck anywhere between a 60-second and a 3-minute rest is where I tend to be. So that is such a big window. But then if I'm looking for muscle endurance, I would drop that to 45 seconds. And because that's my least explored, that is the one that messes me up the most by far.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to rest, I think a lot of people, they either, it's always one way or the other. If they either just rest for way too long when they don't need to be. But a lot of people, if you've got supersets or like giant sets or anything like that, they don't rest long enough. So people, yes, that's for muscular endurance sometimes. So doing like giant sets and supersets is for muscular endurance. But because you've got 3 exercises back to back or 2 exercises back to back, you need to rest that little bit longer so you can lift that weight correctly. I like the idea of like taking almost like a tick list approach to resting and going, do you feel like you could physically complete another set again like you did last time? And do you so are you physically prepared, but also are you mentally prepared to go again? Are you mentally prepared to pick those weights up? And then that way and if you feel like, oh, actually, yeah, both of those feels fine, I reckon I'm good to go, then go. And sometimes you can play with that as well. So if you don't feel mentally prepared, but you physically actually, fuck it, yeah, I could lift that. Then that's a way of telling yourself, right, yeah, I should get back into it now.
There was an episode we done that went through through rest breaks and recovery. I can't find it at the moment, but yeah, there is an episode we done. If you look for our back catalogue, where we talk about what it means to have the different rest breaks in between each and what system it's recovering. Basically, there is science behind how long you should have a rest break for, just because of the recovery of the energy system that you're using. But I can't find the episode at the minute, so it is on there somewhere.
It's episode 27.
How the hell did you find that quick? I was just scrolling through there then.
Man, I'm a
yeah, look
master.
at that. More effective with the rest periods and energy systems. And last one is on this is frequency variation. And that is how often you work out, how frequent you work out. If, for instance, you find yourself getting absolutely knackered and your workouts are becoming a slog and you're working out 5 days a week, just see what happens when you simplify your workouts and take it down to 3 times a week instead. Guarantee you that will have a massive, massive impact. Just because you do work out a certain amount of times per week doesn't mean you always have to. If you really want to work out 6 times a week, then that's fine. But why not try having 3 of those as weightlifting sessions and another 3 as stability and even practice sessions and mobility sessions as well? There's nothing saying you have to go and hit the weights hard 6 times a week, especially if you're plateauing.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people, if you've been training 2-3 times a week now for a year or so, and then you find you're not improving anymore, then maybe it's time to take that jump and do some more days. There's a lot of people
Definitely.
that train just 2 to 3 times a week. And maybe, it's time to go, right, now it's time to do 4. Maybe it's time to do 5.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see people massively improve their fitness levels, their strength levels, their shape when they jump to those like 4 or 5 days. It makes a humongous difference to their levels of fitness.
I see. I've seen this both ways. So if you're like a type A personality and really fucking going for it all the time, I actually see bigger improvements by dropping it down to 3 times and bringing that intensity to 3 workouts a week. But for most people who don't bring that real hardcore intensity to it, then yeah, I agree with you completely. That's when the 4 to 5 times definitely kind of brings it up. And that depends on you and how hard you go, and it depends on a few other factors as well, like lifestyle. So now we're going to quickly move on to what can you do when you actually hit a plateau. So let's say you're already at a plateau. We've just gone through how to intelligently program around hitting them, and now let's talk about what happens if you hit one. First thing I'm going to say is check your other stressors. So make sure your sleep, your nutrition, and your everyday stress is in check, because if these things aren't, then you're going to keep on hitting plateaus more and more often. Especially the stronger you get and the more effort you can put into your workouts, sleep, nutrition, and stress are going to become that much more important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for those, just head to episode 3 is nutrition, episode 4 is all on stress, and episode 13 and 14 are on sleep. So head to those episodes if you're struggling with either of those. People need to start seeing training as more of and like loads of people don't like this word, but like a holistic practice. So looking at everything in your life is because all of it affects all of it. So if your sleep is off, your nutrition's off, and your stress off, your training's going to be shit. So make sure you get on those things. Make sure you're trying to optimize everything else.
Yeah. Perfect. So the next point I've got here can sometimes tie into these stresses as well, because sometimes your sleep, nutrition, and stress can just be off for one day or maybe 1 week. So if you've hit a plateau, say on one certain lift, then give that lift another attempt on 3 separate occasions. So the next time you come to that workout, try it again. If you still fail, then try it again. Okay, so give that 3 attempts, and you might find by the 3rd attempt you actually get through it naturally anyway, just because maybe you were particularly stressed that day. I'm going to go straight into the next point with this. If after the 3 attempts you don't manage to get it, then it's time to regress. So you can probably do that by deloading the weight, and this is the way I've got through most of my plateaus in my life. I deload by 10% and then just carry on with that same program.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Deloads are like super important, man. A lot of people don't feel like they need them, and technically you don't always need one if your programming is really good, but I find they can really help, especially if you're doing like heavy strength training. Jumping into a deload can make the world of difference.
Yeah, and and that can take us into a deload week as well. So sometimes it's really good to actually have a deload week. So if you're powerlifting, for example, it can be really, really good to have a deload week just before you start testing your 1 rep maxes, just to make sure everything's nice and recovered, just to make sure you can do it, because you're not going to lose strength in that week. And the nervous system stress on your body can just do with being tempered back a little bit before going into the really heavy shit.
Yeah, definitely. A good week's. I mean, if you're having a super heavy and you're getting really high up there, and it's been majorly taxing on the nervous system, then you can do a little bit longer than a week. You can go up to like 10 days, maybe a bit longer, but a week's kind of standard in terms of a deload. Deload practices. Some people, there's so many different styles of deload that people suggest. For my clients, in terms of when it comes to strength stuff, I normally just cut everything in half.
Yeah.
I normally just cut reps and weight in half, and just give them a nice rest. People that they always hate it as well, because they're like, I just don't feel like I'm doing anything. And it's like, yeah, that's the whole point. That's the whole point.
Yeah, and look, sometimes you'll need a deload week, not just because you've been lifting heavy, but again, because you have got other stresses. And this is one of the important things that we have to do as coaches. If we get a client who turns up and they're actually just fucked from their everyday life because they've had a really, really tough week emotionally, physically, and mentally, then we will probably have to deload them anyway, because they're not going to be able to, it's not going to do them any favors to throw them into a real freaking high lift. Sometimes it helps people, but that's part of our job. We've just got to decide, okay, this isn't going to be any good for you at the moment. So deload week, sometimes a good idea. Like you said, the 50% drop, that's just a really good way to practice. And then that's how I kind of frame it for my clients. I say, look, we're just going to, you want not making progress now. And what we're actually going to do is really focus on nailing the movement. That is your gauge for this week, is getting the movement so nailed in that they just feel absolutely solid. So there is nothing wrong with a deload week at all. The next one is change the stimulus, and this kind of comes back to all the points that we said in the intelligently phased programming side of things. So that is, you can change up the exercises, you can change up the reps, you can change up the sets, change up the load, change up the rest, or change up the frequency. All of these things, if you're hitting a plateau right now, those things are still true. You can try changing up all of those things to try and skip past that plateau.
Yeah, exactly. If it's not working, just switch it out. Simple as that. If it's not working, just do something different. that's the simplest way to go.
And there are some times where you actually want to find where you plateau as well, and that's like a 1 rep max. If you're powerlifting, like you're kind of almost looking for that plateau. So there are some times when you need it, and just make sure you are recovering properly from it. But remember, guys, the stronger you get, the more recovery and the more you're going to need the other things in your life in check as well. Okay, that is that sleep, that nutrition, and that stress, and just being able to deload your mind almost as well. You want to be able to get to a place where you can bring your nervous system down to. So I'm just going to quickly run through all this again. So the best way to break through a training plateau is, first of all, try to get ahead of the plateaus before they happen through intelligent programming. And that can involve exercise variation, rep variation, set variation, load variation, rest variation, and frequency variation. And if you are actually in a plateau, check your other stresses first. Check your sleep, your nutrition, and your stress. You can give whatever lift you're attempting, you can give that 3 attempts on 3 separate occasions. If that doesn't work, then you can regress the move by either dropping the weight on it, dropping the reps, dropping the sets. You can have a deload week, which is where you can drop everything by about 50%, just focus on the movement, get your nervous system back on track. Or you can change the stimulus, which is, again, all of those things: the exercises, the reps, the sets, the load, the rest, and the frequency. So, guys, that is the best ways to break through a training plateau. Josh, have you got anything else to add to that?
No, I think that's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's if you're struggling and you're not sure what's going on, then just go through all the points in this episode, and you will most likely come out the other side a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I forgot to say, guys, if you have any subjects you would like us to talk about, then the best way to do that is to hit us up in the Facebook group and let us know what you want us to talk about. And if we think you deserve it, we will whack it onto one of our episodes. But Josh, apart from the Facebook group, which is the Lifting Lounge, where else can they find us?
Well, wait a minute. You're pushing me a bit.
Oh,
ahead
yeah,
here.
hold on a minute. You've got something else to say first. I do apologize. I don't want to take this away from you.
Come on, man. What the fuck? What do you call a factory that makes okay products?
I don't know. No idea on this one.
A satisfactory.
Oh, my fucking God. Despite his joke telling,
So yeah, they can find us.
Despite his joke telling,
Go on.
Josh is not a father, as far as he knows. So why he has this many good dad jokes, I do not know. So yeah, this is all bad dad jokes for that matter. But yeah, go on then, Josh. Where can they find us?
They can find us at the RDA Strength System on Instagram and Facebook, and on TikTok. They can also find us on YouTube at The Lifting Lounge, our website at The Lifting Lounge, and they can find us on X at the RDA System, and they can find, I already said our website, didn't I? And they can find our Facebook group if you have any comments or questions that you want us to cover. The Lifting Lounge group on Facebook, and we are there for your needs.
Perfect. Guys, leave us likes, leave us comments, ask us questions, subscribe to us, hit the notification bell, share the shit out of us, leave us 5 stars, leave us reviews, do anything you can on any platform to help us spread the awesome word of the Lifting Lounge. Until next time, guys, this has been episode 65. We have been Jack and Josh, and we will see you for episode 66.
Yeah, 66.
66. Oh, we'll be 69 soon. Hey, bye for now.
Hey, bye.